You know, Fran and I grew up in Yellow Springs, 7 miles from here. We knew some of the stories, that this is where the Shawnee village was. The story about Daniel Boone being captured by the Shawnees down in Kentucky, brought here for a number of months. So this is just part of our history here in Greene County. And we thought that this was really a story that needed to be told. And this was the place to tell the story.
So every time we would come down 68 towards here, you know, Mom would point out the ridge over here and tell us that, you know, here is where the settlement was. And so it was always, you know, I was always fascinated.
Back in 2019, I got an email from the governor, and the email basically said, hey, you know, now that we have the opportunity, there's this great area near where I grew up, and there's so many stories and legends and tales about it. If we have the opportunity, I'd like to do something special to honor that area.
We came up with a storybook trail with a native book being featured, and then we also thought of a driving trail that could take you to key spots in Ohio where Tecumseh had been. But after giving those ideas to Director Mertz, she suggested that we look into the possibility of creating an interpretive center.
This deserves so much more. Like, we can do something really extraordinary with this and tell the story of Ohio's history.
So I took that idea, made a presentation, and we presented those ideas to Governor DeWine. He picked the interpretive center.
Well, I think it was kind of exciting to envision what this was going to be. You know, we wanted something that sort of looked a little bit like how it might have looked.
We didn't want it just to be a building. We wanted it to reflect the heritage of the Shawnees who were here, and Native Americans who were here. We needed a modern building, but we wanted to somehow reflect that. And so the idea was that this would in some way represent the Great Council House.
Working with our architects, you know, there are styles that predominate out there. That was sort of a painful process, right? They would bring ideas and we would just know. They weren't a wow. And so we kept going through that and going through that and going through that.
We ended up finding an old illustration, and the project manager at the time, Jacob Bench, took that image, and from all the ideas he had gotten from the tribes and the governor, he went into Google CAD and drafted up a version of the building.
I'm like, just draw a picture of what a longhouse would look like. Just scratch it out. And he did, and he did a great job. And we took that to the architects and said, this is what we want.
And that was actually the basis for what the building is today. We gave that to the architectural firm, and they took it and ran with it and designed the building we have today.
We brought it to the tribes, and they said this was the one that they wanted. You know, like, this is the one that, you know, is true to that we are modern people today, but also, you know, that we have a very rich past, and this kind of pulls all of those ideas together for what it might have looked like when the tribes lived there. And so that was a really exciting moment.
As you move back towards the back of the site and you look out towards Little Miami, you see the valley, you see all the natural resources that are there, you know, the trees, the wetlands, the other habitats, but you also, knowing the history, you can feel that there is a historical connection to the area and a lot of meaning there. And that's a special moment, and it's something that we've tried to capture with the building since then.
There's really been a lot of challenges at the site. I mean, we initially started out with a fairly small parcel of just a little bit over an acre. So as we started the planning process, there were a lot of challenges just figuring out how to fit all the different things that we wanted into that relatively small footprint. Since then, the site has fortunately been able to grow a little bit.
That's a lengthy process, especially after COVID. We think a lot about, you know, where are we going to get the materials, and how are we going to make sure they show up on time, and how are we going to make sure everything hits the marks for the quality and the use that we expect visitors to have in this space when they come to learn in the future. So that's a lot of hard work that happens during construction.
There's also a lot of stakeholders in this project, so a lot of different groups that we've had to coordinate with and make sure that at the end of the day, everybody's going to be happy with the project. So, of course, there was a lot of communication with our director and with our governor. There was also communication with the 3 federally recognized Shawnee tribes to make sure that their input was heard.
We planned it together so that we knew how they felt, and we also wanted to reflect how the pioneers felt. And so we really worked together on this.
You have the renderings, and then you have to actually make the building function. So we spent a lot of time talking about, where are the spaces for exhibits? Where are the spaces for, various important amenities? How do you kind of organize the building so it has the most impact for both visitors coming in, but also to make learning happen, which is the goal of the Interpretive Center.
We initially started working on the exhibits several years ago with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. We started in the very early conversations of what might the stories be here, and also making connections between ODNR and the 3 Shawnee tribes, just to make sure that we were really centering those stories, that this was an Ohio story, an American history story, and a Shawnee story.
We looked at the early archaeological evidence, historic documents from different people who were in the area at the time, working with the tribes on their history. There's much of which is an oral tradition.
There's going to be a prairie type plantings behind it, and you just can imagine looking out and seeing maybe a smoke from a campfire or something in your head. It's like, this is where they were. This is where the Shawnee were, and they're coming back here to tell their story. That's exciting.
So we've created some environments. We have a dwelling, a structure that may have looked like something people lived in the 1700s. About 17 feet wide, big dome dwelling. That'll be really interesting. Represents the seasons and family life, up to more contemporary and modern presentation for the tribes today to reflect their story today.
Inside the facility, we have what we're calling a living stream. So it's about a 1,000-gallon, basically, aquarium that's designed to help visitors experience the river. Even inside, they'll be stocked with native fish that you can see and maybe even touch. One of the biggest tasks that I was given in the very beginning was to start planning for operations, trying to figure out not just how we build the building and what goes into it, but how we manage it once it's done, how it becomes a park.
It's been very interesting to see this great council project grow from where it started over 2 years ago to less than $2 million now, kind of blossoming into the project that it is now. I really am impressed with how much the Ohio Department of Natural Resources has grown internally as a result of this project, and how excited all of us are now to share pieces of Shawnee history and culture and identity that folks in Ohio have probably never seen before.
The building is an opportunity to learn about a new space that we haven't talked about very much at ODNR, and it's the 76th State Park. It's a new space with a new mission, and there are not too many opportunities to be a part of something like that.
I think this is really going to be a nice jewel in the Ohio State Park system for everybody to come out and share.
We need more curiosity in this world. People need to care about it and be curious and ask questions. I want them to learn a little bit about the Little Miami and what it meant to the tribe in the late 1700s and what it means to us today. I want them to leave with some knowledge about what the tribes were like while the American Revolution was raging and what the tribes are like today. I want them to leave with an appreciation of what the frontiersmen and the pioneers faced and reflect on how that has led to what many people in Greene County are living today. But most of all, I hope it makes them curious to go find out more about the past and help them think a little bit more about the future.
This is part of our history. This is part of Ohio history. This is who we all are. You know, these are the people that went before us. And to be able to tell their story, I think it's just so very important.